Welcome in, guys, to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege. Today, November 18th, almost through completely Week 11 here in the NFL. We got one more game to go on tonight's agenda between the Texans and the Dallas Cowboys. We'll preview that later on in the show once we get more information on who's playing and all the inactives and things like that. But we had a big day yesterday in terms of the stipulations, the importance of some of these games that we're going to go over on today's show. Starting off with the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. A big game for Josh Allen, a big game for the Bills in general and the entire AFC conference, so we're going to go over that. The Steelers get another win over the Baltimore Ravens as well, taking sole control of the AFC North Division. We'll talk about that. The Ravens' questionable decisions not to use Derrick Henry, and whether or not, just touching on the Steelers and whether or not they are legit after a win like this. And, of course, Sunday Night Football, we'll talk about that as well between the Chargers and the Cincinnati Bengals. But before we get started, I'd like to remind you guys, if you guys want to be part of the show and want to get involved with any questions, comments, or any opinions you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to do so. We always are very interested in what you guys have to say. Your input is a big part of what makes this show great, and we thrive on your energy and your insights. So if you want to make it absolutely sure that your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to go about that. Just use the Super Chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your Super Chat. And this way, it guarantees that your message gets on the air. And it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. And we rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love. And again, we appreciate it whenever you guys are able to do that. So again, go ahead and let us know what you're thinking. Hit the Super Chat button and get involved with the show today. But now we can start looking over some of the games that we had on yesterday. And I think the Bills and the Chiefs game definitely had the most riding on it. I would say just from a, rivalry, just personal standpoint from the Bills and the Chiefs stand, each side of their respective teams, and also just the entire AFC conference. Because I think one of the biggest points we made in this preview was that the fact that if the Chiefs won this game, there was a lot on, the Chiefs winning versus the Bills winning. And if the Chiefs would have won this game, they would have had head-to-head victories over the Ravens, over the Bills, and there would have been a couple games, ahead of them as well. So this was a monumental win, all in all, from the Buffalo Bills. We got another showdown between Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen yesterday. Very good performances by those two guys, but it was the Buffalo Bills who came out on top. 30-21 was the final score, and now the Bills win their 6th game in a row to bring them to 9-2, and they're only one game back of Kansas City now, with them having the head-to-head advantage over the Chiefs. So if the Chiefs were to lose one more game, the Bills would go to the number 1 seed because of that tiebreaker, because of the result of this game, obviously. And on the Chiefs side of things, still, they're 9-1. They just lost their first game, and really it came down to that 26-yard touchdown run right before the 2-minute warning by Josh Allen on 4th down to really give the Bills the breathing room they needed to pretty much write this game off, because there was about 2 minutes left, like I said, and at that point they were up 9 points, so the Chiefs would have had to score twice, and there was just not enough time left after that great run by Josh Allen. And now, speaking about Josh Allen and also Patrick Mahomes, Allen is now 4-4 against Patrick Mahomes, including the playoffs, but Patrick, 3 of those wins for his side have been in the playoffs. So, he's won them more so when they've counted more, but still, this is a big win. This is a big win overall for the Bills because of the fact that they keep the Chiefs within striking distance. And all in all, I think not just for the simple fact of the win, but the Bills played very good in this game. They held the Chiefs to a season low in amount of total yards. They recorded 259 total yards in the game yesterday, in large part because the running game was not really there for Kansas City in this game. The Bills did a very good job of trying to stifle that, and there was no sacks, no pressure on Josh Allen either. So for this defense that has really gone after, opposing quarterbacks, opposing teams, the Bills' offensive line, credit to them as well for doing a great job in protecting their quarterback and letting him, extend plays, run when he needs to, get first downs using his legs as well. All of that was a credit to Josh, obviously, for his talents, but the offensive line did a great job of that. While on the other side, the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, was pressured 15 times, and he was sacked twice yesterday. So there was a little bit of an advantage there, but you could definitely tell that Patrick throughout the game was a lot more. I think the pressure definitely affected him a lot more than it did Josh. I never felt that Josh made an errant pass or anything like that, I guess other than the interception. But for the most part, the pocket was pretty clean, and if not, he made a clear decision to go out and run, whereas Patrick, I felt there was a lot more scrambling to do with his performance overall yesterday. And we mentioned Josh Allen and how well he did. The interception, he had a touchdown as well. He also had a rushing touchdown, and he threw for 262 yards on the day. James Cook added another 20 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns as well for him. And Khalil Shakir, he had a monster day yesterday. He had 12 targets, 8 receptions for 70 yards. He didn't score, unfortunately. Curtis Samuel had the only receiving touchdown on the day yesterday. But I thought Khalil Shakir did a lot of great things, especially in the run after the catch scenarios. He got a lot of yak yardage, obviously, and he was extremely hard to tackle. He put the Bills in a lot more manageable situations when they threw him screens, when he got open and he broke a tackle or just dove over for a couple extra yards. I thought all of that was a great showing by Khalil Shakir yesterday, especially when, they got Amari Cooper back, but they were missing guys like Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman. So I thought he really stepped up in a big way. Then the Chiefs, Patrick didn't play awful. He had 196 yards. He threw 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, unfortunately, for the Chiefs. Kareem Hunt had 60 yards rushing. No rushing touchdowns for them. And Xavier Worthy led all receivers with 61 receiving yards and a touchdown. Also, to the Bills' credit, they did a good job of taking away Travis Kelce. Only 2 receptions for 8 yards. So that was a point where, Travis in the past has really been a factor in these games. So for him to not really be too involved, more credit even so to the Buffalo Bills. But the way the game played out, it was a perfect start for Buffalo just because they forced that interception on the first drive by the Chiefs. Then they go down and they score. They missed the extra point, but still they're leading 6-0. And Kansas City, there was a bit of a lull there where the teams punted and there was a couple 3-and-outs, but the Chiefs finally took a 7-6 lead after they scored their first touchdown. But again, the Bills did a great job to respond and answer right back, and the game was 7-13. But before halftime, actually, there was a big moment in this game where I thought it was a sort of circle back moment. If that makes sense, just a moment in the game where you felt that, looking back on it, that this could have a big impact on the outcome of the game. And I thought I saw that before halftime, because the Bills threw that interception that we talked about and Kansas City scored. They took advantage of it. They went down, scored a touchdown, and they were leading 14-13, but to the Bills' credit, they scored a field goal and they took that lead into halftime. So at that point, once I saw the interception, I'm thinking, like, if they were to lose a game, that play is going to be emphasized a lot because of that, how poor, the interception looked. It seemed like a desperation throw, but luckily for them, they went into halftime with the lead. And to start the second half, each team punted twice before the Bills built up even more of a lead, and we're now leading 23-14 at this point after Curtis Samuel's touchdown. But again, the Chiefs not going away. Noah Gray would go and score his second touchdown of the day to keep it a two-point deficit for the Chiefs at that point. But the crucial point, obviously the game-winning moment, was when Josh Allen and the Bills, had that fourth down, and instead of taking the field goal and going up 5 points with very little time left for them to even get the ball back after the Chiefs got the ball back, they went for it on fourth down. Josh not only got the first down, but just kept on going, broke a couple tackles, and made his way into the end zone. That made the score 20-30 with about 2 minutes left. And the way how the game was going, it was always going to be tough for the Chiefs to come back, especially. So I mean, yeah, it was a big statement win for the Bills at this point to put pressure on Kansas City and, not make the number one seed so, already defined, right? To not just hand it over to Kansas City because they probably weren't going to win 3 games for the last couple of games here. So now, that puts them back into contention. I thought with this win, also for Josh, it puts him back into the contention really for the MVP, and I know that's not something that he's probably focused on, but a game like this, handing the Chiefs their first loss, and also the way Lamar played today, or yesterday, I should say, it's a huge deal for him, for him to try and win his first MVP here as well, and for the Chiefs side of things, I mean, no one's hitting the panic button or anything like that. If anything, this will give them more of an incentive to get better. But the offensive tackles and the amount of pressure teams get on Patrick is something that I think differs from last year, where last year, the conversation was about the weapons and the drops and everything like that. I think this year, the weapons aren't too bad. I mean, Noah Gray is not really mentioned too much, but he always seems to pop up when Patrick needs him to. Travis will show up. He'll have his bad games, but in the playoffs, he'll show up. Xavier Worthy, he had that bad moment where he stepped out of bounds on that big catch that he had, but he's going to get better. They're going to get Hollywood Brown back too. Isaiah Pacheco's just about to come back, so nothing to really think they're going to collapse or anything like that, nothing crazy, but the offensive tackles is something that I'll keep an eye on, and especially because you're talking about the left tackle, right? Patrick's blind side, and if you can't block anybody, just your offensive tackles, you don't have the luxury to do that. You're going to have to bring more people in. You're going to have to chip pass rushers, and it takes away from the options you have, obviously, in the running game. So I think, they're getting by with it. They're winning close games. I'm sure they're going to be favored in a lot of close games going forward, but I think to the Bills' credit overall, good for them to not hurt themselves, because a lot of times that's how the Chiefs win these close games, where they never mess it up for themselves. It's usually the other teams where they turn it over, they have a bad drive, they punt too many times, and that ultimately cost them the game. But the Bills came in with a good plan. They had a lot of pressure on Patrick, and even though, they had a turnover as well, they forced more pressure, more bad throws, more errant play from the Chiefs. So credit to the Bills. The Chiefs will be all right, and it just makes it more interesting for that number one seed going forward in the AFC that is getting a little bit tight up there, because the next team we're going to talk about, the Pittsburgh Steelers, got a massive win over the Baltimore Ravens. Their biggest test up until this point. I know I said that last week about the Commanders, but the Baltimore Ravens were far and away considered one of the best, if not the best, offenses, and the Steelers' defense shut them down. So we're going to talk about that from the Ravens side of things, but also more on Pittsburgh when we return after this break.